So after 10 years, I decided, after seeing that the Bigfoot forest people were intelligent, sentient beings, and I would show up to the SOA base camp and they would toss in a rock at me within 5 minutes and a pine cone after 10 minutes, what dumb giant mountain ape would do that? I would show up, and within 5 minutes, here comes the rock and here comes the pine cone. So I decided, and then Cynthia and I went out hiking from SOA. We went out hiking on a trail. We came back, and we found 20 pine cones in a straight line that weren't there when we hiked out, but when we came back, the 20 pine cones were there. Ladies and gentlemen, that was not a squirrel. That was not a deer. That was not a bear. That was not an elk. We hiked out. Nothing was there. We hiked back. There were 20 pine cones in a straight line. And at the end of that straight line was a geometric figure made out of sticks and pine cones. That was not there. That takes intelligence, not a dumb giant mountain ape. That takes intelligence. So I decided to adopt a habituation method, the Dr. Jane Goodall method. I decided that I was no longer going to treat them as dumb giant mountain apes, and I was going to treat them as a forest people. I was going to treat them as the North American Indians have been referring to them for hundreds of years, as a people, as a tribe, not a dumb giant mountain ape. And I adopted a protocol. And with this protocol, I would show up and I would ring a cowbell for 1 minute, or I would have my guest ring a cowbell for 1 minute as soon as we arrived. There's no one else up in the mountains that would ring a cowbell besides us. And after the cowbell, we would establish the base camp. We would set up our cots and our chairs and everything in the same position every time. We would be consistent. We would be predictable every time. They could see the same thing every time. The cots went in the same place every time. The chairs went in the same place every time. And I would put out gifting bowls, not bait piles. If you're working with a dumb giant mountain ape, you're going to bait it because that's what you do with animals. You bait animals, but I'm no longer working with animals. I'm working with a forest people. I'm working with an intelligent, sentient being, so I'm no longer baiting it. I'm gifting the forest people, and so I would wear surgical gloves, and put these baiting bowls together. Surgical gloves, and I'd put these baiting bowls together, and I would wash these baiting bowls and get rid of any evidence of fingerprints, and then I would put these gifting bowls out while I'm wearing surgical gloves. And I would put them out 150 feet away from the base camp right when the sun's going down. Right when the sun is going down. And I'd pick them up as soon as the sun is coming up the next morning. If you're leaving gifting bowls out there for 1, 2, 3 days, I'm sorry, but that's too long. You need to put them out at sunset, and you need to pick them up at sunrise, period. And if you've been following my research, then you will do what I've taught you to do. You will put them out at sunset, and you will pick them up at sunrise. You leave them out for days at a time, you don't know what's hitting it. You put it out at sunset, and you pick it up at sunrise, and you eliminate a lot of possibilities. So we'd put it out at sunset, 150 feet away from the base camp, and then we'd pick it up at sunrise the next morning. This is a before picture. This is an after picture. Before, after. Before, we would use eggs as a control variable. Because if you had little critters, raccoons, whatever, hitting the bulls, I guarantee you, no raccoon would leave one egg left. Seriously. So any trolls here, any old schoolers here, any scoffers here, admit the truth. No raccoon would leave one egg left behind. That's the truth. Yet look here, look at the after. One egg was taken. The rest are left behind. Look up here in the before pictures. Look here in the after pictures. See this chocolate donut? It's gone. See these 4 Cheetos around the chocolate donut? They're still there. Do you see this sandwich right here, the sandwich half? This raspberry and peanut butter jelly sandwich half? It's gone right here. Do you see this bowl with a McDonald's chicken wrap right here? It's gone. Do you see it there? It's gone. The importance of taking before and after pictures. So 25 feet away from the gifting bowl area, Grady finds the bowl. And it's right next to a log where a large Sasquatch sat and consumed the chicken wrap. Now, people have asked me, have you tried giving them ... Have you tried giving them vegetables? Have you tried giving them fruit? Have you tried giving them meat? The answer is, duh. I've been out there for years. I've been out there for 1-2 weekends a month. And when I'm out there 1-2 weekends a month, I'm out there for 2 to 4 nights a weekend. And just so you know, I was with Cynthia in Puyallup, and my son, Grady, is in Grants Pass, Oregon. And I'm driving pretty much 1,000 miles round trip every month, sometimes twice a month, to see my son, plus engage in my research. How many of you out here are driving 1,000 miles a month to do your research? BS. You are not driving 1,000 miles a month. You might be driving a couple 100 miles a month. That's what people don't understand. If I'm promoting a hoax, then why am I driving 1,000 miles a month round trip? I would drive 1,000 miles a month round trip. I would spend $600 or more dollars a month on gas, wear and tear on the vehicle, and supplies. And people would accuse me of perpetuating a hoax. Up yours. Seriously. You think I'm promoting a hoax? Up yours. Why would I do that? So, have we tried this and have we tried that? Duh, yes, we have. We have tried vegetables. We have tried fruit. We have tried meat, cooked and uncooked. And guess what? After years, I finally figured it out, and I was a little slow, but I finally figured it out that the only thing they would take is bread products. Bagels, cheese breadsticks, cookies, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, bread products, muffins, bread products. They could get vegetables and fruit and meat in their natural environment. They wanted bread products. They wanted stuff that they couldn't get in their natural environment. Now, look at the pizza, okay? Do you see this right here? The mushrooms and the olives. They picked off the mushrooms and the olives and ate the pizza and put the mushrooms and the olives in the corner of the box. You tell me what little critter would pick off mushrooms and olives and leave them in the corner of the box? They're not going to do that. Give me a break. Now, regarding critters, little critters, because my critics would say, there's just little critters doing that. You just have little critters taking food out of your bowls. And you're saying it's Sasquatch. Those are little critters. My response is, you're idiots. Seriously. Cynthia came up with a wonderful idea, and that was to, with her home, which is in Puyallup, Washington, and on a green belt. And if you follow this green belt south, you will go into the Mount Rainier National Park. And it's going to go through properties, but there's lots of trees and vegetation. Lots of room for wildlife to go through. So we're in South Hill, Washington, and we're overlooking the Ording Valley below. And in this green belt, lots of animals come into our backyard. A bobcat. Cynthia was only 15 feet away from that bobcat when she photographed it. Raccoon come up on our back porch. Deer, possum, deer, and cows from the Ording Valley below. So anyway, Cynthia had this wonderful idea while I was out in SOA putting out gifting bowls to put the same thing in the gifting bowls in the backyard on the back porch that I put out in SOA to see what the little critters would do with the gifting bowls. So she put the same stuff out in the gifting bowls on the back porch, and the little critters decimated the gifting bowls. When little critters hit the bowls, there's nuclear devastation. There's a mess in the bowls and a mess around the bowls. The Bigfoot forest people never do that. They're neat and clean. They only take what they want, and they leave behind what they don't want. On one occasion in SOA, when I left out, remember the eggs, which was a control variable, they actually took 2 eggs, cracked them in half like you would do with a frying pan when you're cooking eggs, consumed the egg and the yolk, and then put one shell in the other shell half, and then put both of those halves back in the carton, the egg carton. You tell me what little critter would do that. The Bigfoot forest people are neat and clean and respectful, but little critters are not. They will engage in nuclear devastation of the bowls and around the bowls. The Bigfoot forest people will not. Now, also the Bigfoot, the little critters, squirrels, raccoon, etc., will not leave fingerprints on the bowls. Remember, I was wearing surgical gloves. I wiped the bowls clean. And the squirrels and the raccoon will not leave fingerprints on the bowls. Those bowls were washed clean while I was wearing surgical gloves. Yet we found fingerprints the following morning. And I guarantee you, those are not raccoon fingerprints. Those are not squirrel fingerprints. Those are not deer fingerprints. Well, duh, Matt, fingerprints have hooves. That's my point. Deers have hooves. Deers have hooves. They don't have fingerprints. That's the point. Deer also don't have palm prints and fingerprints. Squirrels don't have palm prints and fingerprints. Cynthia, my fiance, works for a law enforcement agency in the state of Washington. She took these palm prints and fingerprints into their fingerprint specialists for this large law enforcement agency in the state of Washington, who looked at them and said, those aren't human. And his hobby happens to be looking at palm prints and fingerprints of primates in the zoo in Seattle. And he said that those palm prints and fingerprints don't look like any primate in the zoo in Seattle he's ever seen. He was like a kid in a candy shop. Yet I have trolls and moles out there who refuse to believe what I'm presenting. They refuse to accept the truth. I had Johnny Manson, the head of the Sasquatch Summit, out there at the Quinault Casino on the coast of Washington. How many of you have been there? Awesome conference. He came out with me to my research area, and we collected saliva from my forest people who put these peanut M&Ms in their mouth and swished them around and sucked on them and spit them back out into the gifting bowls. I have Sasquatch saliva frozen in our freezer in the garage in our home in Puyallup, Washington, waiting for the right DNA expert to examine them. Emphasis on the right DNA expert to examine them. Don't you dare come up to me and ask me, why don't you have Todd Disotell examine them? Don't do that. Do not ask me why I don't have Melba Ketchum examine them. Don't do that. I know some of you are big supporters of Melba, but the truth is she has too much controversy behind her for me to turn this over to her. That would be stupid. I want somebody without controversy. So I know some of you are loyalists to Melba. Good for you. I'm not, and I'm not turning my data over to somebody who's got problems. Grady, who is now 10, has been out there with me since he was 2, and we've collected a whole lot of foot casts. So you've seen all these people up front, multiple witnesses, right? And the reason why I showed you the multiple witnesses is to show you that this is not me making this crap up. I've had people out there with me at SOA and Soya who have seen and heard things that I've seen and heard. And now I'm showing you circumstantial evidence. I'm showing you fingerprints. I'm showing you that they've hit the gifting bowls. I'm showing you foot casts. Johnny Manson there with a 22-inch foot cast. And I'm showing you pictures taken in SOA. See the right eye and the nose and the mouth and the jawline and the hairline and the torso. I'm showing you circumstantial evidence, including the head peeking behind the tree and another one over here. And these were behind the house behind Cynthia's house in the Greenbelt. And here's the one peeking from behind the tree, and here's the one with the shoulder, the head, the shoulder, the arm. Okay? The reason why I'm showing you this evidence is because anyone could stand up front and say, I've seen this, I've heard that, this has happened. Well, anyone can do that. But if they're not producing evidence, then are they telling the truth? Are they making crap up? Where's their evidence? Where's their multiple witness testimony? You've seen all the witnesses up here, and once again, that's not even half of all the witnesses I've ever brought with me. Is Ron Moorhead a liar? He was with me. Is Carrie a liar? Are all the other people up here liars? They've seen stuff. They've heard stuff. Are they liars? And then there's this inconvenient truth of audio files. I took, you see up here, the Bionic Ear parabolic microphone dish, and I would put that out every night, and I would record for 8, 10, 12 hours a night. And Grady was out there with me when he was 4 or 5. And at that time, we were in a tent, and he woke me up and he said, "Dad, I have to go potty." And I said, "Grady, go ahead and go potty. The porta potty is out there. Go ahead and go. Unzip the tent and go out." He's a brave little guy, 4 or 5, and he unzips the tent and he goes out. And then he comes back in a minute later and he goes, "Dad, the water jug is too heavy for me to pick up." And it was a 5-gallon water jug. It was too heavy for a 4 or 5-year-old to pick up. So I'm sorry, Grady. I'll come out and I'll take care of that for you. Well, when I went home and I started listening to my audio recordings, both times when Grady went out of the tent, I heard the following. Go-Y-8. That's my first recording ever of spoken Bigfoot language, ever. Go-Y-8. Both times Grady exited the tent. Go-Y-8. Here we go again. That sounded to me like North American Indian dialect with staccato syllables. I had a friend who was a member of the Klamath Fall Indian tribe who said that Go-Y-8 was a word for urine in their tribe. And my boy was going out there to pee in the porta potty. Then I recorded this. That is Chatty Cathy. Chatty Cathy is a juvenile female, and she talks and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. Not like any of you other females out there, but she, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. It's true. It's true. Okay. So Chatty Cathy is just chatty. Seriously, she's chatty, 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 chatty Cathy. So listen, calm down. So Chatty Cathy is out there chatting, and we're sleeping. We're sleeping. We are sleeping. And this is around 2 in the morning on the perimeter while we're sleeping. That's Chatty Cathy. And then this one is an adult male with a fast cadence, not a slow kind of North American Indian staccato syllables type approach to language. But this male is talking with a fast cadence. But what you're hearing is the young one who responds, hick. Now, Ron Moorhead was up here earlier saying, I don't know what that means. And I agree with him. Unless they tell you, you don't know what it means. But I promise you, I've listened to hundreds of hours of my audio recordings, and I do know what hick means. Hick is a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot, a forest people acknowledgement of what they just heard. That's what it is. So if somebody says something to you and you go, okay, sure, you're acknowledging what they just said, that's equivalent to hick. That's what hic means. Hic is just an acknowledgement of what you just heard. So we're going to listen to the adult male with fast cadence saying what they're saying, and then we're going to hear a young one say hic. And then we have this one. We have this one where June of 2014, Adam Davies, John Carlson, myself, and Grady are out there. We dealt with the whole portal experience, and we're all exhausted. And so we decide to retrieve the gifting bowls at sunrise. We bring them back to camp. We put them on the table at the 12 o'clock position, and we're exhausted, so we go back to bed in our cots. Well, we had a box of 4 Cinnabons sitting on the table with the parabolic microphone dish at the 12 o'clock position. Our forest people friends took the Cinnabon rolls from the gifting bowls. Our game plan was, after we caught up on our sleep and when we woke up, we were going to grab the 4 Cinnabons from the box and eat them for breakfast. When we woke up, the 4 Cinnabon rolls were gone. When they were gone, I thought, you know what? When I get home, I need to listen to the audio recordings. So I listened to the audio recordings while we were sleeping, and this is what happened. Now it's looped, so you're going to hear it repeated a couple times. So I do know what Ah De Welu means. Okay, listen to it again. Ah De Welu. Ah De Welu means score, we got the Cinnabons. Okay. And then Johnny Manson and I were out there in December of 2013, and look at the picture. It was 22 degrees. Do you see the icicles hanging? We woke up in the morning with frost and ice on our faces and on our sleeping bags and all over the trees all around us. Okay, so with the ice and the frost, and you see Johnny doing the Patty impersonation in the background. Okay. During that night, we recorded the following. Chatty Cathy was at the foot of Johnny's cot, and you're going to hear us sleeping and breathing heavy, and you're going to hear Chatty Cathy say, Nipkia. Now, I do know what Nipkia means. Nipkia means, look at the ugly, bald-headed guy sleeping next to the tall, handsome guy. Johnny Manson disputes that interpretation, just to be fair. Now, when we woke up the next morning, it was freaking cold. Our hands were frozen solid. Try digging your keys out of your pocket when your fingers are frozen solid. Eventually, I got a hold of my keys. We got into my Suburban. I started it up so we could heat up the car and warm up. It was 22 above zero. It was freaking cold. The parabolic microphone dish was still recording while we were in the car. So while we were in the car, the adolescent male outside of the car was calling me. you're a troll or a mole sitting out there thinking I'm making this crap up, then, up yours. Seriously, get a life. I'm not making this stuff up. I want the woo! You can't handle the woo. Seriously, if you're asking you want the woo, then you better be able to handle the woo. I'm willing to give you the woo, but don't ask for the woo if you're not willing to handle the woo. The great reveal, the reason why most of you are here tonight. By the way, the great reveal is all spelled out in my book over there. Don't ask for the woo if you don't want the woo, if you can't handle the woo. Here we go. By the way, if you can't handle the woo, listen closely, you can't handle the woo. It's not my issue. It's your issue. Own it. Deal with it. Face it. It's not my problem. It's your problem. The first gulp from the glass of natural sciences will make you an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. Werner Heisenberg, the father of quantum physics. Nikola Tesla. If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Think of energy, frequency, and vibration. The Sasquatches are uniquely gifted. They have paranormal abilities. No, they don't. Actually, yes, they do. Get over it. Seriously, work through your issues. There's too many people that have experienced it for you to think that your ignorance and your denial overrides everybody who's actually experienced it. It's not everyone else who's crazy. It's you who are in denial. It's you who are unwilling to face the truth. It's your problem. It's your issue. It's not everybody else who's experiencing this. It's you who's unwilling to admit it. It's your problem. Don't you put it on everybody else. Own it. It's you. They do have paranormal abilities. They are capable of reading memories and mind speak. Grady and I were out in SOA in the tent. And this was around 2004, I believe. Huh? 4. Yeah. 12. Sorry, thanks. It was after Cynthia and I met. 2012. Thank you, babe. Around 2012, I stand corrected. So Grady and I are in the tent, and I hear these footsteps coming to the back of the tent. All of a sudden, I get zapped, and then this hand reaches through the tent and goes between my head and the pillow. Well, did they put a hole in the tent? No. Didn't you hear Ron Moorhead earlier talking about them reaching through the fabric of a tent? Didn't you hear that? There's other people out there who experienced it, not just me. Ron Moorhead referenced it. Other people have talked about it. You don't understand it. You don't get it. You don't accept it. Once again, it's your issue. It's not my issue. It really happened. A hand is reaching through the tent. It's between my head and the pillow. I get zapped. And all of a sudden, the memories from my infancy forward are going in front of me. Like pictures on a screen in my mind, starting with birth. And I struggle in my mind for about 10, 15 minutes, and eventually I stop the process from happening. And I say, this isn't fair, this isn't right. And I hear a response in my mind, what isn't fair, what isn't right? And I said, you get to know everything about me, but I don't get to know anything about you. If you want to read through my memories, then I need to be able to ask you questions. And his response was, I need to talk with the elders first. I said, okay. So he disengaged. He took his hand out from between my head and the pillow, And I was no longer zapped. And he walked away. And I lay there in the middle of the night, in the pitch dark, in the tent, going, whoa. About an hour and a half, 2 hours later, I hear 2 sets of bipedal steps coming back toward my tent. I get zapped again, and for those of you out there wondering what zapped is like, for me, the way I describe it is that if you go in for surgery and they put a mask over your nose and your mouth and they ask you to count backwards from 10, by the time you hit 5, you're out. Well, when you get zapped, you're not at a 5, you're not out. You're not at a 10, you're not wide awake and able to move. When you get zapped, you're at a 7.5. Your body's immobilized, but you're still awake. So I was zapped, my body was immobilized, but I was still awake, and then this much larger hand came between my pillow and my head, and I heard the father say, "My son says that you have some questions." And I said, "Yes, why is he reading through my memories?" He said, "That's our way of understanding what's going on with the human race." Made sense to me. They don't have CNN News, they don't have Fox News. Makes sense to me. Do you have any other questions? Yes, who are you? We are guardians of the forest and we protect all who dwell within. Do you have any other questions? I'm thinking, no, that's good enough for me. I'm like blown away. Now I know you're sitting out there, I would ask this, I would ask that. Well, I don't care. You weren't there. That didn't happen to you. I was blown away. I was done. May my son continue to read through your memories. Yes, thank you. His hand goes away. His son's hand comes in. He finishes reading through my memories. It takes about 45 minutes. He's done. He says, "Thank you." I say, "You're welcome." His hand goes out. They walk away. I'm back to a 10. And I'm thinking, what the F just happened? Am I going crazy? Did this really just happen? And then I light up Cynthia's cell phone with text messages telling her what just happened. And you remember that, babe? Very vividly. Yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning. So then I go, oh no, what about Grady, right? Because Grady was in the tent with me. I roll over to my left to check out my son, who was 4 or 5 at the time. He lifts his head up off the pillow. He looks at me in the eyes and he says, "Daddy, they talked with me too." And then put his head back on the pillow and went to sleep. Crap. This really did happen. Grady didn't say he talked with me as in singular. He said they talked with me as in plural, as in more than one. So then in September of 2011, Cynthia and I are back out in the woods behind her house in the Greenbelt between South Hill, Washington, and the Ording Valley. And once again, if you follow the Greenbelt south, you'll go to the Mount Rainier National Forest, and we also have Howie Gordon with us. So there's 3 of us doing a night sit out in the Greenbelt around midnight, and we're surrounded within a half hour by several squatches, older and younger. And we hear them moving around, and then I say in my calm psychologist voice, "We're just here to be your friends. We mean you no harm. It would be cool if one of you came out and said hello to us." Well, no sooner than I said that it would be cool if one of you came out and said hello to us, one of them came out. Started walking at the 12 o'clock position toward us. You could see the silhouette, 8 feet or more taller, walking right toward us, and all of a sudden he cloaked, but he kept walking. And you could see the footsteps on the ground with the leaves and the ferns moving and the branches over 8 feet off the ground. And the 3 of us are sitting here in the pitch dark. And Howie over here on the other side of Cynthia saying, Doc, it's coming right at you." And I stand up and he keeps coming, and I see, and we all hear the footsteps coming and the ferns moving and the branches moving. And he comes on my left side and he bumps my left shoulder and spins me around like I'm a little guy. And I'm 6'9" and over 300 pounds. I'm not a little guy. But he moves me around like I am. And he keeps walking, and you see the ferns and the branches moving, and he goes into the brush and trees behind us. And while he passes us, all of our central nervous systems light up. Right, babe? What? Yes.
The whole left side of me was just tingling, and I felt a sense of dissonance, like I couldn't quite focus visually or cognitively. It was amazing.
So if you're sitting out there thinking I'm making this crap up, once again, up yours. Seriously. I don't lie and I don't hoax, so I'm getting sick of people thinking I make this crap up. If you think I make this crap up, if you think I'm lying and hoaxing, up yours. You're the one with the issue, not me. I speak the truth. I tell the truth. I've always told the truth. So if you think I'm not, it's your issue. It's not my issue. So they do cloak. Been out there often enough to find out, to learn, to experience the fact that they're a lot like the Predator movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, like what you see in Barb Shoop's video. But at night, when you get the right ambient light, you can see their shimmering image move around. You can see it. We've seen Zorth, Cynthia and I have seen Zorth walk into camp while Cynthia's playing the flute. 10 feet tall, walks into camp at the 11 o'clock position, and we both see it, right, babe? He is big. Micah and I were out there, my 21-year-old son, and we saw him walk into camp, 10 feet tall. And Micah said to me, Dad, did you just see what I saw? And I said, yeah. And he said, he's huge. And I said, son, that's Zorth. He's the leader of the clan. And Micah said, hello, Mr. Zorth. You're humongous. Pleasure to meet you. They do cloak. Now, I took Adam Davies and John Carlson out to SOA. How many of you have heard about Adam Davies? Raise your hand. A lot of you. World-renowned cryptozoologist going all over the world looking for Bigfoot. I told him before he came to SOA, he and I were Skyping. He asked me if he could come to SOA because he was going to come to America and do a West Coast tour. He was going to go to a very well-known spot in Washington on the West Coast, and then he was going to hopefully come to SOA, and then he was going to go to Northern California. And I told him, Adam, here's what's going to happen on your trip. You're going to go to this popular spot in Western Washington, and you're going to hang out with a lot of fun people, and you're going to have good food and good drink. Speaking of good drink, the bar is still open over there. So don't forget about the bar open over there. So you're going to have good food and good drink, Adam, and you're going to hang out and swap stories with a lot of Bigfooters, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun, but you're going to go up the mountain in large groups, which is what you need not to do, and nothing's going to happen. And then you're going to come to SOA, and your mind is going to get blown, and then you're going to go to Northern California, and you're going to hang out with good people and see beautiful scenery and have good food and good drink, but nothing's going to happen, and you're going to process down in Northern California what happened in SOA. Well, when he got back to England after the whole thing happened, he said, Matt, you called that 100% spot on, but neither one of us anticipated what would happen in SOA. And what happened in SOA, as most of you heard, was that we came across a portal. We were up there for 4 nights. The first 2 nights, we had nothing but awesome squatch activity on the perimeter. We had silhouettes, we had eye glow, we had bipedal steps, we had vocals, and Adam Davies and John Carlson were blown away. They were blown away by the first 2 nights. But the third night, a portal opened up at the 6 o'clock position on the perimeter. Now, I didn't know that. I was still up at the 9 and 12 and 3 o'clock position interacting with the Squatches, and the Suburban's parked here, and Adam and John are saying, Matt, come back here. And I'm like, I'm a little peeved because this is where all the Squatch activity is, and they're so anxious and so scared. They're hiding on the other side of the Suburban, and I'm telling them, you need to come up here. And they're, no, come back here. And I'm saying, you come up here. Matt, come here. So I walk around the Suburban, around the corner, look at the 6 o'clock, and crap, there is a portal opened up at the 6 o'clock position, and they're going, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. I've been up here for 8 years. I've never seen that before. Well, later on, I realized that the whole time I was at SOA, I was sitting in the camp facing the 12 o'clock position, and I could see 9 to 12 and 12 to 3. And occasionally, while looking at 12 o'clock, I could see light flashing off the trees in front of my face. And a couple of times I thought it was a car driving up the road behind us, but I never saw a car, so I never figured out what it was. But all of a sudden I realized that the light I saw flashing on the trees in front of my face was from the portal behind me opening up and closing after they discovered the portal. I never knew over 8 years that that portal was there. And they're asking me, what is that? I don't know. I don't know what that is. And then 2 of these 3-foot tall beings with glowing red eyes are standing on both sides of the portal, and they're freaking Adam and John out. Sasquatches and portals and guardians, oh my. So much for lions and tigers and bears. So, for some of you who doubt me, let's listen to just maybe 2 minutes of an interview that you could hear the whole thing on SoundCloud.com if you go to Team Squatching USA, and you can listen to the whole interview, but I'm just going to play 2 minutes of the interview.
In terms of the paranormal, unlike John, I don't have a huge interest in it. It's not that I wouldn't listen to a ghost story if it was told me, because I would. But my thing has always been to try and get evidence, DNA evidence, hopefully, of whether these creatures exist, particularly hominids, which is my favorite.
Right.
But also to hopefully see one, and that's what I'm about. The events that happened over that summer were not what I wanted, really. I remember saying to John, I didn't sign up for the extraterrestrial battle with creatures from another world show. I went to see a frigging Bigfoot. I didn't sign up for this crap, you know.
Did you hear that? He acknowledged the portal was there. He didn't sign up for an interdimensional battle, right? You heard him say that. He came to saw Bigfoot, and he did, but he also got this, and I didn't have any idea that that was going on there until they triggered it. So on the way back to Seattle, when I was driving Adam and John back to Seattle, and Cynthia, when we were there and when we were encountering the portal 2 nights in a row, did we call you and talk to you about it?
Yes. You were very stressed, and Adam and John were both tearing their hair out. They could not figure out what was going on. They were definitely blown away and very, very stressed out.
And did we talk about it after we came back to Seattle?
Yeah, when the 3 guys got home, I have never seen 2 men so shell-shocked as Adam and John. They had that inward-looking eye. They didn't want to talk. They really were very shut down. And Matt was very frustrated because nothing had quite gone the way he anticipated it was going to go. This was a brand new development for us.
And one last question. After they left and you and I were laying in bed at night, did I talk about throwing in the towel?
I really thought Matt was going to give it all up. It was not what he had signed up for either. His focus had always been on finding the Bigfoot, dragging them out of the forest, and proving to people I'm not crazy. And instead, he was getting dragged further and further and further down a rabbit hole that he had not ever ever thought was going to happen to him. We processed it for probably a good 3 to 6 weeks. He went back out a couple of times during that time, but it was still nip and tuck whether he was going to stay out there.
So on the way back to Seattle from Southern Oregon, Adam told me while I was driving in the Suburban, from now on, Matthew, if you tell me that you have seen a pink unicorn in SOA, I will believe you. Now, warning, Adam and John engaged in a dichotomy. They split the reality, which is what people do when they're in denial, which is what people do with a natural psychological defense mechanism in order to cope with the stress of reality. They decided to take the portal activity in SOA and divide it into two things. In their minds, they encountered the Bigfoot Sasquatch, but they also happened to encounter guardians guarding the gateway to the portal to hell. Demons. A false dichotomy. They said that there were two different significant events going on in SOA. Now I'm asking you, how lucky am I? Seriously. I have squatches going on in SOA. How many of you can claim that wherever you are? And on top of the squatches, I have a gateway to hell with demons guarding the gateway. I have both of those things going on. I need to buy a lottery ticket. How lucky am I? Because of their denial, they engaged in a dichotomy, in splitting reality so they could handle it. They acknowledge, if you look at my YouTube videos, they acknowledge I had squatch activity going on in SOA. I'm not going to take the time to show you that. Go to youtube.com, type in Team Squatching USA, and go down to the videos and watch it yourself. They acknowledge that I had squatch activity going on in SOA. But they also think I had demonic activity going on in SOA and demons guarding the gateway to hell. They were splitting. They were dichotomizing. That was their way of dealing with a reality that they couldn't handle. I had Bigfoot, but I also had demons guarding the gateway to hell. That's not what was going on in SOA. Matter of fact, a couple months later, I actually saw a Bigfoot walk out of the portal. In September of 2014, I saw a Bigfoot walk out of that portal. Therefore, that portal is not a gateway to hell. But they're not willing to admit that. They're not willing to acknowledge that. It's not my issue, that's their issue. Now, it took me a year to figure out how did we open up this portal. I'd been up there for 8 years and never encountered this portal. All of a sudden, the portal opens up. How did this portal get opened up? It took me a year to figure it out. I'm a psychologist. I'm a problem solver. That's my profession. That's what I do. I'm a problem solver. People come into my office for me to solve their problems. It took me a year to figure it out, but I eventually figured it out. After a year, I realized that the reason why we opened up that portal is because on the day before the night that we actually opened up the portal, we actually went to the Oregon House of Mystery, the Oregon Vortex. We took an hour tour through the magnetic energy and collected the juju on our bodies, and we brought it back to SOA. Andrea Billups has been there with me, and we also did the same thing. Other people have been there with me, and we've done likewise. And after a year, after figuring it out, I reopened the portal. Now, that is not an actual picture of the portal, but that's a good rendition of what it looked like. It was a fog of light, that was not a fog. It was not mist. It was not moist. It was light, but it looked like a fog. And wind was blowing, but the light wasn't moving because wind cannot blow light. It was stationary in spite of the wind. And I reopened it several times over several months with over 10 witnesses. Did you just hear that? Several times over several months with several witnesses. Total of 10 witnesses. You do not get to sit out there if you're a troll or a mole and call me a liar and say I'm making this stuff up. Because you have to say that all the other people out there with me are lying and making the stuff up too. Well, you're hypnotizing them. What didn't you hear from me earlier? I told you I don't engage in hypnotic therapy. There's 3 ways as a psychologist to get yourself sued right away. Listen closely. Number 1, hypnosis. You want to get yourself sued with your clients, engage in hypnosis. That's one reason why I don't do it. I learned that in graduate school. I learned that at CEU seminars. Don't do hypnosis with your clients. Number 2, child custody evaluations. You're going to have pissed off parents who didn't get their kids are going to sue you. Don't do child custody evaluations. Number 3, have sex with your clients. I don't do that. What aren't you hearing? I don't do hypnosis with my clients. Do not accuse me of engaging in hypnosis with people who go to SOA. I don't have any training in that. Shut the F up. I don't do that. You don't get to accuse me of doing that. Listen, but we all saw this fog of light, several of us over several months. Now look at this lunar cycle. Do you see how we have a thumbnail of light? I was in SOA during this cycle right here, not a whole lot of ambient light at all. And while we were in SOA, I took about 60 pictures with my cell phone. 60 pictures. Most of them, actually 57 of them, were black. When I was done, they were all black. But I did get an orb, and I did get the orb streaking in 2 of the pics. And then you saw this, and Alyssa runs with Wolf's presentation earlier. I got this foot with red light around it. I took these pictures in the dark of the area where the portal was, where Adam Davies and John Carlson saw it, where I saw it, where my son Grady saw it, where my dog Atlas saw it. All of us responded to it. So I got an orb, a streaking orb, and a foot in red light. Now, our eyes didn't see it, but the camera caught it. Also, while up in SOA, I saw beams of light. They were 7, 8, 9 feet tall. They were translucent. You could see through them. And I had Gunnar Monson with Sasquatch Coffee and Michael Beers with BFRO up there with me. And they were sitting in their chairs against my Suburban, and I was over at the 9 o'clock position. And I saw these beams about 40 feet back, and I felt this unconditional love like I've never felt before. And I came back over after a few minutes to Michael and Gunnar, and I was crying, tears down my cheeks, because I was emotionally moved by this unconditional love. They saw light over there lighting up the area, but they had no idea what was going on.